Hey everybody, Louderman here. Just going to do a little review and overview of my Traxxas Nitro Slash. I have had this car for about 3 months at this point. It is a bucket of fun. I did do a video on my 4x4 brushless VXL Slash, and I do like it. I love it. It's a great truck. This is just straight up more fun, especially for me, because I like loud noises and I like to go very fast. This is great. Again, Proline body. Both of the bodies on these trucks, I killed them pretty quick. So I did some research. Proline, their bodies are pretty thick. Same goes for the Bronco body. It is some relatively thick Lexan plastic. So I figured that would hold up a little bit better. Unfortunately, this was my first time painting a body, and I did not select the right spray paint, as you can see, because it's all flaking off every time I hit something or flip over, and that's not good. It's awful. And what was, I thought, a pretty good paint job is gone to shit. It's flaking all over the place. I do want to talk just a little bit about this body real quick. It's a Proline Fusion. It's a Proline Flo-tek Fusion. Ah, see? Yeah, I can put the sticker on it so I'd remember. It's great. This thing jumps really well. I will say that the 4x4, chassis-wise, jumps better, but with this body, they jump pretty much the same. This just evacuates all the air out from under the car. All of it. It's great. You have a lot less that parachuting effect. I've also got Proline Trenchers, front and rear. I've got the regular Trenchers up front and the Trencher X tires on the back, which are actually slightly wider. And I upgraded the tires on these simply because the 3.3 Traxxas Nitro engine in this truck just destroys these tires, especially on like asphalt. It's crazy. Your tires just go away. So I went through, I think, 3 sets of tires in 3 months with this car, which is a little excessive. I've had the Prolines on there for almost a month now, and they're holding up a little bit better. So I'm getting a lot less spin out of the tires and actually getting more traction. This thing pops wheelies like nobody's business. It's nuts. So let's actually get into the meat and potatoes of the car. Again, Proline body mounts. RPM front bumper. They don't make a rear bumper option for this car, and honestly, I don't know if I'd have gotten it. But I couldn't anyway. So I did cut out a window here, or a little window in the front windscreen, just to get the airflow to the engine, the cooling head, and so I could get to the fuel cap. That's what this zip tie is for. You just kind of pull up on it, and now you can get in there and stick your fuel bottle in there. So that's what that's for, if anybody was wondering. Traxxas big bore shocks. I have Proline Power-strokes on my electric truck, and compared to the big bores, I do have to say I like the Power-strokes a little bit better. Having said that, these are cheaper, probably more readily available, and I honestly can't say whether you have more options for springs on this or the Prolines. I don't even know if they're compatible. I don't think they are, but they both work really well. These are cheaper though too, so, and better performing than the stock shocks. So I would recommend these down the road if you feel like you need better shocks. So this truck is, aside from all that, pretty much stock. RPM rear A-arms. I haven't managed to break the front ones yet, so those haven't been upgraded yet. I have the RPMs on hand, I just haven't broken them, and, well, I don't feel the need to rip it apart until I break it. I have, however, broken almost everything else on this truck. I broke the bearing carriers up front. I broke some of the steering knuckles. So those got upgraded to the anodized aluminum. And they look sweet. I've broken the front tower brace, the rear tower brace, which is actually really fun to replace because you have to undo all your wiring, unmount everything, take the whole rear end of the car apart. It's great fun. You should totally break that and replace it with aluminum immediately so it never breaks again. I've broken shock caps, I've broken camber links, I have knocked the exhaust off about seven times. I even broke the plastic one, so I had an excuse to upgrade it with the dual chamber resonator. What else have I broken on this car? I've broken the body mounts, hence the Prolines. I've destroyed an air filter housing. I have destroyed about 3 of these little blue wires for the glow plugs. So, I've also killed a bell crank, which is another fun thing to replace on this truck. So, I've really gotten elbows deep into this car to take it apart and fix it a couple times. And I don't want that to sound like it's not a durable car, because it is. But I do want to stress the fact that I run this thing really hard. The 3.3 engine is, honestly, entirely too much power for how light this car is. It's probably only weighs about 8 pounds. So it's an 8-pound car, and it's got all that massive power, and it's only going to 2 wheels. It sounds like a recipe for disaster, but it's actually a recipe for uncontrolled fun. This is unbelievably fun to drive. It's lightning fast. It just soaks up the bumps. And honestly, every time I've broken something, it's because I either hit a curb going 35 miles an hour or was taking some insanely big jumps. When I broke these the shock towers, I broke the rear one doing probably 35-40 miles an hour, jumping into a drainage basin, and I actually landed it flat, so all that energy just transferred up in the shock tower, and the shock tower said, nope, I'm done. And the front one was a massive cartwheeling off of a similar jump. I was coming up out of the basin, and it nosed over, and at the time, I didn't have my brake adjusted correctly, and, well, it just kind of cartwheeled over and, did one of those. So, I have broken a lot on this truck. That's because I'm really, really running it hard. Like, viciously hard. And that's what I love about this truck, is it promotes that kind of driving. I will say that this is a vehicle that you're going to want to spend some time on. It's a nitro truck. It requires the extra maintenance. But it's lightning fast, and it actually is built incredibly tough. Aside from the parts I mentioned, everything else on this is stock or absolutely unbroken. Or stock and absolutely unbroken. Everything that I've done is wear and tear or me being stupid. And I've had this truck a little bit longer, so it only makes sense that my driving skills have improved a little bit, and I broke my VXL 4x4 a little bit less. And I feel like jumping onto this as my first, real hobby grade RC was maybe not the greatest decision in the world, because it might be a little bit much. But it's awesome. So that's my thoughts on that. Now let's actually get back to the truck. So, like I said, aside from the resonator, the shocks, everything else on this thing is just bone stock. And I really don't feel the need to change any of it. The air filter mount's nice and secure. It keeps it away from the spur gear and slipper clutch assembly back here. This is a little bit of a pain to get it mounted right to the point where it won't just come loose the moment you hit something on the front bumper. Actually, just flip this around real quick. I do like this dual chamber resonator though. There is a single chamber version available. It's also really good. I like the dual chamber just because it focuses a little bit more on the mid to high RPM range, and you don't really need that much low-end grunt when you got this giant 3.3. So I felt like tuning the top end, mid to top end, was a little bit more appropriate, and that's what I went with. Excuse me. I still have the easy start system on the truck. It's still works great. I do like it. A lot of people will say it adds weight to the truck, it adds complexity to the truck, it's rubbish, it doesn't work. No, it works fine. It's honestly really good. The only time I've ever had a problem with it, the Easy Start motor actually did kind of back out of this housing. That was about 2 months in after I first got the truck, and I never checked to see, I never pulled it apart to make sure that it was mounted securely. Because when you're running these trucks really hard, especially like I do with this thing, you need to sit down, tear it apart, and go through and make sure all your hardware is still fastened. That's something very important to do on any car, especially a Nitro. Because this thing just adds a lot more vibration to the car. So, you need to do that. I didn't, that's why this failed. The only other problem I've had with it is lunching this little blue wire, because the stock Traxxas body does not do a good job of protecting it. The Proline body does a much better job, so that's nice. I've killed that a couple times, and hence the reason why I carry around a glow plug igniter, even though I have a Easy Start. I also carry around one of these in my box. It is a pull start. I haven't had to use it yet, but if this thing just goes tits up on me and just decides to die for whatever reason, I can get my truck running again in about 5 minutes. Because it's going to take that long to just take the exhaust off, pop this bad boy off, tie up the wire somewhere with a zip tie, throw that on, and you're back and running. One of the best things I love about this truck is it's got a big fuel tank. It's 150 milliliter, which is on the bigger side for most Nitro trucks. Normally, the tank you get is smaller. So, that's another huge thing I love about this thing. As far as what I would consider mandatory upgrades, again, get your RPM A-arms, have them on hand. I threw the rears on almost immediately. The fronts I've not managed to break, but they're sitting in my toolbox. The only other thing I would consider absolutely 100% mandatory for the Nitro Slash is, in fact, tires. Hardcore. You don't have to go all for it, just get something really good for the back tires. Because the one thing that's going to turn you off to this car, provided it's not the Nitro bit of it, is going to be the complete and utter lack of traction on very loose surfaces. The stock tires do a decent job of keeping the car in control, but not good enough. Put some good tires on here, like Trenchers or Badlands. J Concepts makes a lot of great tires. I'm not familiar with all their different varieties, but I've seen guys run them. They work great. So get yourself some good tires, throw them on the back of the truck. I actually just got these, the front trencher, simply because I wanted the rims to match, the wheels to match. And that's the only reason I got these. A nice, relatively medium compound on the front will help the tires to get a little bit more bite, so the car won't tend to push through the turns as much, just understeer, which will be really good. You'll actually get a little bit more bite out of the front end. With the stock tires, if you're under throttle, the car's going to understeer like nobody's business. You're going to turn the wheels and nothing's going to happen almost. It's going to drift a little bit. You let off the throttle, then it'll start to turn. Then you just pound the throttle again. Next thing you know, the back ends come around, and you've done like 360 at least. This is a fantastic truck to bash with. I wouldn't necessarily call it a great race truck because honestly, in a race situation, I think it would have too much power and not enough traction. For bashing around and having great fun, jumping, just straight up speed runs, this is great. I will also point out that the Slash 4x4 that I have gotten it up to 50 miles an hour according to the Traxxas telemetry. From a dead stop, the 4x4 VXL is faster. From a rolling start, this will reach a higher top speed and will win in a drag race, provided it starts rolling. It's unbelievably quick. So that's my little review of the Traxxas Nitro Slash. Again, if you have any questions, comments, leave them in the comment section and I will get back to you. Thanks.